People always talk about have a mantra, whatever that you say. For me, it never seems to do a damn thing. And I think a lot of people would agree. But you talk about basically creating like a meaningful mantra that actually works. Right. So how do you do that? What's the difference?
Oh, there's a big difference. So kind of if you hate your body, I have a daughter that really struggles with how she looks right now.
How old is she?
22.
22.
She's the one with the text in the book who sent me the text seriously while I was writing the book that said, why am I always the ugliest one at the bar?
I saw that text. It was very, very hard to read. It broke my heart when I saw that.
Yeah.
As a mom especially, it's tough to see that.
And the whole point, and I have her permission to talk about it, and I had her permission to write about it. The text shows that when you get something like that from somebody that you love, it's interesting because that text reveals how she sees the world, not how we see her in the world.
Right.
And it's really important to understand that your experience in life is 1000% determined by what filter you're viewing the world through. And yes, you may have all kinds of evidence that you're overweight right now, or you've let your health go, or that you've done some things that you regret. But how does beating yourself up over it help you change those things? It doesn't.
Right.
In fact, based on the research, we know that being hard on yourself makes it even less likely you're going to change. It's very demotivating. That the most empowering force on the planet is feeling supported and encouraged. And most people who are in a place where they have something that they don't like about their life or their bank account or their pant size or themselves, they spend all day harping on themselves about it instead of flipping it into encouraging and focusing on what they want. So in terms of meaningful mantras, there is no way in hell my daughter, in where she is in her life, is going to stand in front of a mirror and go, I love my body. Should she? Of course she should. Is she the ugliest person in the bar? Are you kidding me? I've tried everything. I follow the experts in this area. I don't ever talk about her body. I talk about her personality, her loyalty, what an incredible friend and daughter and human, her sense of humor, her work, like all of it. She is so focused on how miserable she feels about it that her brain in real time filters the world in a way to go, oh, see, that person's skinnier than me. Boom, more evidence. Completely ignoring that all the other people that she'd actually not be bigger than. Your brain will literally reorganize itself in real time in order to confirm what you believe and what you keep telling yourself. And so back to the mantras, if you don't believe it, your mind rejects it. Seriously. And so you have to start with something that I call meaningful. I probably should have called it pathetic mantras in order to make it stick, because it's not something like, let's say that you think you're a bad person. Okay. You got cheating in your past, or maybe you were abused. You've got childhood trauma. You got all kinds of evidence from your past that makes you stand in front of the mirror and see somebody that does not deserve a high five because you're a damaged person that screws everything up. Okay. What happens when you start to tell yourself that? Maybe somebody told you that when you were growing up. You've thought it so often. You now think it all the time. Just because you've thought it for a long time doesn't mean it has to stay as the default in your mind. That's the other thing that people don't realize, is that at any moment in time, you can get intentional about resetting the default shit that you think in your mind. Just because you're used to it doesn't mean you have to keep thinking it. So if you get in front of that mirror, let me just keep going with this story. So if you have this opinion that you're damaged goods and everything that you do screws up and you're a bad person, let's take a really innocuous example. Let's say that you...
Or not good enough. I think it's more about being not good enough.
Oh, I think people's stories, I think that's the thing people say in public. I think that's a nice way to say, I think I'm a piece of shit. I think I'm worthless. I think I'm not good enough sounds okay in polite conversation.
You don't think that social media, though, has played such a screw up in people's minds because they're comparing constantly to other people?
Yeah, but look, social media is a tool.
Exactly.
Too many people have allowed themselves to become the tool. And if you have an issue or a problem with comparison, stop being an asshole about social media to yourself. Go through your feed and get rid of every single account that triggers you. and fill your account with things that actually make you feel good about yourself, that are about where you're going instead of where you're not and where you're lacking. By doing that and curating your own feed to make you feel like shit, you are tripling down on the programming in your brain and making your brain believe, oh, it's important that I feel bad. It's important I see people skinnier than me. It's important that I see people that have more money than me. It's important that I see all these fake relationships online. It's important that I sit here in bed and before I even set my intention or do my morning routine, I spend 30 minutes self-loathing as I look at people's vacations and I make myself wrong about where I'm not. What the fuck are you doing? Seriously, get rid of those accounts on your feed. If you're unhappy, do something about it. Mm-hmm. And the fastest way to use social media for good is delete all the crap that makes you feel like horrible about yourself and start putting in things that reinforce the message that you are in control of your life. You can change your life. You can achieve your goals. You can be a happier person. You can heal your trauma. Absolutely. That is 1,000% in your control. You shouldn't be a robot about it. And so, but nobody does. We all just kind of mindlessly consume it because that's how it's designed. But it can be an incredibly powerful tool for good if you're intentional about how you use it.
Right. The curation is actually a very good idea, but people don't take that extra step to do that.
You have to. Like unfollow Friday. Unfollow Friday. Every Friday, go through your feed and unfollow people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and if you're like, oh, but my Uncle Joe is going to get annoyed if I'm... Mute him. Who gives a shit what your Uncle Joe thinks? Honest to God. Like, your social media is for you. Stop thinking about what you're broadcasting on social media and start thinking about what you're allowing into your mind.
That's a great one.
Look at the last 5 people you texted. Are those people helping you get where you want to go?
Are you asking me or just...
I'm just saying, there's a test you can do. Look at the last 5 people you texted. Look at the last 5 accounts you liked. Oh, Kim Kardashian, thanks a lot. Like, she's an amazing businesswoman. Amazing businesswoman. Is she actually helping you get where you want to go?
Absolutely. I don't follow her, but I would imagine not. Yes.
Well, I don't know. For some people, maybe. For some people, not. Like, get serious about your life. Mm-hmm. Like, at some point, you're going to die. At some point, this whole thing's over. And you're mindlessly walking through this and setting up your whole life to make you feel like shit. And you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. And that's, again, very tangible stuff. I mean, I think I digressed a bit from the creating a mantra, but you said something about...
Oh, the mantra. Okay, so here's the thing. We got totally off the call.
Okay.
So if you stand every morning and can't stare at yourself because you think you're worthless or whatever, and let's say you oversleep and you missed a dentist appointment. Who hasn't done that, right? Yeah. I certainly have. Yeah. If you're somebody that has good self-esteem, you go, oh, shoot, I missed the dentist appointment. I'm going to have to pay the $25 fee. I guess I'll just reschedule it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're somebody who has really low self-esteem, you go, see, you can't do anything right. You can't make it to the dentist. Everything in your life becomes evidence that you're a piece of shit. Everything in your life becomes evidence that you are doing things wrong. You see, the difference between me having done all this work on myself, therapy, EMDR, psychedelic guided therapy sessions, all of the high 5 habits, learning how to regulate my nervous system, dealing with childhood trauma. The difference between where I am now and where I used to be is I screw up shit all the time. I don't hook you're a piece of shit to it anymore. Mm. I'm able to allow myself to screw up and go, good people do have bad days. I'm doing my best.
Right.
I'll just pay the $25 and reschedule.
Right. And you don't hold on to it.
Correct.
Right.
Hold on to it. Most of us pour it all over ourselves. We just bathe in it. Mm-hmm. And so meaningful mantras, I should have called them pathetic mantras. You're right. Are literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Interrupt that thought. I'm a bad person. Mm-hmm. I screw everything up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about it. And then you can insert something like, hey, I'm doing the best I can and I'm getting better every day. Hey, I'm doing the best I can. That's not exactly woo, we're going to run the Ironman kind of talk. But meaningful talk is something you can believe.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I like that. Again, and then,
I can see your wheels turning. You're like, oh my God.
I am, because because it's so refreshing, and I really enjoy when people actually give you the hows, not just this is why it's happening, and go on and on and on. But these are like all, and this is in this book and in your other book, tangible. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, you want to get
Actionable.
your mental health in order, and you want to have better self-worth and self-love. Here's what you do. Stop sleeping with your phone so it's not next to you when you wake up. That way, when you wake up, you'll get out of bed and you won't look at social media.
Where do you put the phone? Do you keep it downstairs?
I charge it in my bathroom.
You do? Okay. So,
Yeah.
And what time are you off? What time are you off the phone at night?
Depends on the day. I mean, I don't do what's called the gray zone. So the reason why people are so screwed up right now is because you're living in what psychologists call the gray zone, which is you're never not working, which is your phone.
That's true.
And
You're
never
right.
not, like it's always on you. And so you never have a break, ever.
That's true.
And there's no separation between work and life. And your life, like there's not going to be balance, but there can be harmony and there can be boundaries. And so one of the things that I have that's really helped me, because I love what I do for a living. It doesn't even feel like work.
Right.
I could be on my phone 24 hours a day. I'd never see my husband or my children, but I could be on my phone 24 hours a day. I have a basket in the kitchen. So I use a lot of environmental triggers to help me cheat good behavior. So an example of an environmental trigger is a basket in the kitchen that has plugs at it. So when I get home, I put my phone in the kitchen. A lot of times you can't reach me because it's sitting in the basket. It's not on me.
Right. You can't see it.
Correct.
It's in the basket.
Correct. So keeping it away from you is really important, because here's the thing. You're never going to be successful if you're on your phone 24/7. Never. You're going to always be busy and mistake it for success. If you want to be wildly successful, you better get strategic and smart. And it is not smart to let this thing use you. You need to be the one using it. And so I put it in the basket in the kitchen when I'm home, because we don't have phones when we're having a family dinner. And it would, I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. And thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the phone has been one of our biggest fights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Me too.
just being distracted and not present with each other. So that's helped a lot. When I go to bed, it's in the bathroom. And for everybody that's worried because you're a single parent or you've got a job that you work a shift that you need to be available, no problem. Tell people, call me if you need me, and leave the ringer on. But tell them if you text me, I'm not going to respond. It's amazing. People will text you in the middle of the night, but they won't call you unless it's an emergency. So that way you ensure that you get a good night's sleep, because you're not sitting there going to bed watching it or scrolling through it. Then when you wake up and the alarm rings, you have to get out of bed because it's in the bathroom. When you walk toward the bathroom, you have enough presence now to know that you're going to turn it off and flip it over. And now you've got a fighting chance to have the first 30 minutes of the day be for you. You're going to brush your teeth. You're going to stand in front of the mirror, and you're going to have a moment with yourself where you're going to think about who you're going to be today. You're going to think about what's important to you today. And then you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself.
I know that you believe that most mantras are bullshit, and there's a scientific backing behind that. And we've talked about that a lot on the show. So I'm really curious to hear your explanation of why.
Well, most mantras are bullshit because you pick a mantra you don't believe.
Yep.
You know, if you've spent the last 20 years hating your body, beating yourself up every time you try to pull on a pair of jeans, or hiding in the back of every photo that is ever taken with a group. There is no way, even though you should love your body, there's no way that a mantra, I love my body's strong. It's true that your body's strong, but your actions have demonstrated you actually hate it. So when you stand in front of a mirror and you practice a positive mantra that you do not believe, like let's take my husband, for example. My husband was in the restaurant business. For those of you that know the story about the 5-second rule, this is when the 5-second rule got created. And he and his business partner worked for 7 years in that business. And ultimately, it did not return the investment for the investors. And of the remaining units that were open when they left the business and sold it, you know, for a song to the next investor, they, it was interesting because my husband's business partner, who's one of our best friends, has a very high five attitude. Mm-hmm. He literally could take the 7 years experience and objectively look at it and say, we worked our tail off. I'm super proud of what we did. The restaurant business is so hard. We worked, we minimized the risk as much as we could. Did we return the best investment? No. But did we do absolutely everything that we could in order to make this successful? Yes. And I'm proud of that. And that's how he left the business. My husband left the business a shell of himself. He could not forgive himself for losing people's money, including $800,000 of our own, which we didn't have. He felt that the business was a failure. Wow. Therefore, he was a failure.
Yep.
And, the thing about marrying what happened with your identity is it becomes next to impossible when you believe that you are a failure and you have years of evidence that you have now stacked conveniently in a way to go see, and then I did this, and then I did that. If you were to stand in front of a mirror and try to have a mantra that's like, I'm awesome. I love myself.
I always
your brain's
succeed.
Like, yeah, your brain's going to be like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I have to listen to you all day. I've seen that you've done. You are a failure. That like your brain literally is like, off. We don't believe that. So don't tell me that. And so one of the things that I say and write about in this book is that that's why mantras fail you, because you pick something that you don't believe. And so a meaningful mantra, I realize I should have probably called it a pathetic or a lame mantra, works. You can stand in front of a mirror and see evidence of failure and go, but I tried my best. I did the best that I could. I didn't mean to fail. I tried my best. That chips away at the I'm a failure.
That's right.
You could say, if you don't like your body, you could say, I deserve to feel happy. I deserve to feel healthy. I deserve to be kind to myself. That's something you could believe. And so when you start to pick something that's believable, it allows your brain to absorb it. And so that's the only way that it works. And there's other science around how if you really want to make it stick, you've got to bump into the mantra in unexpected places. There's a reason why gyms have on the walls, you're strong, you're amazing, you're this, because the mantra is appearing in a moment where you're doing the things that match the mantra.
Right.
But, one of the interesting things about this high five habit, which I think is one of the reasons why it is so powerful, is that, first of all, your brain and your nervous system are pre-programmed to have the new positive encoding happen. And you don't have to say a thing to yourself. You don't have to think anything when you practice it every day. The programming that's already in your brain associated with high-fiving other people, it's already there.
Right.
So your brain does all the work for you. It'll interrupt the critic and it will reprogram a completely different soundtrack one morning at a time.
I love that because I'm a hypnotherapist as well. So I know a lot.
I did hypnotherapy when I had my second daughter.
Did you? To like hypnobirthing? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. Like the way that the critical factor of the mind works is like, nope, that's not congruent with what we already believe. Like if you already believe that you suck or you're not enough or you're not valuable, it doesn't matter how many times you say it, you're already attached to the subconscious piece. And something that I love about what you're talking about with the positive association. We already have a positive association with a high five. We don't have to train that. We don't have to work hard at it. It's the same way we have an association with a heart. Like that already symbolizes
Oh, it's
love.
so true. It's a great example. You're right. You don't ever see a heart and go, bastard. Like you
Or
just
like,
don't do it. Like it's,
or go, what does that mean? We go,
yeah.
that's a symbol of love. Like it's subconscious programming already. Same thing with high five.
Yeah.
But I love what you're talking about with mantras because, and this is something I've been talking about a lot lately, is it doesn't necessarily have to be overly positive. It just has to be empowering. So even
Yes.
something like you're allowed to feel what you feel, you know, that is a statement that is empowering. It's not super positive because you might be in the depths of fucking despair that day, but it's an empowering thing to tell yourself, or it's transitional. If you, by the all means though, anybody listening, if you can stand in the mirror and say, I am enough, or I'm a badass motherfucker, like do it all day long.
Sure.
But if you
absolutely.
get the kickback, it doesn't mean you suck at personal development. It means your critical factor of the mind is kicking in and doing what it's supposed to do. You know?
Totally.
Most people aren't obsessed with their goals because they don't believe they're worthy of them. It's easy to dream about what you want, but in between where you are and what you want, there's a tremendous amount of stuff you got to change and do. And if you have a lot of trauma in your background, or you were raised by somebody who beat the shit out of you or told you were a piece of shit, or if you've had to deal with microaggressions or racist, discriminatory, systematic crap your entire life, you have been given the message over and over and over, even though it's not true, that you don't deserve it, that there's something wrong with you. And if you don't, at some point, be defiant against what the world or your caregivers or your past experience has pounded into your brain incorrectly, unfairly, you will forever be stuck with that story. You are not responsible for what happened to you. You survived what happened to you. But you do have a responsibility to heal yourself and to do the work to change so that you can be the happy, fulfilled person that you were born to be.
Yeah, that's really powerful because it's the only thing that works. And, you know, thinking about so many people have just immense things that have happened that have been unfair. And as you said, they didn't do anything to deserve it. But now what? Now you're there, you've got the trauma, and no one can heal it for you. There's a name for it. I think it's called the pedestrian problem. It's like, imagine that you get hit by a car and the driver was drunk. And let's say that the driver was Bill Gates. And let's say that you win a settlement. But if the damage that happened to your body can't be fixed with all the money in the world, and you just have to do physical therapy, then it's like, even though it is unfair that you have to do the physical therapy, there is no amount of money that you can throw at it that will stop you from having to suffer to build yourself back up. And I think a lot of people either fall prey to trap number one, which is they don't think they're worthy, or they fall prey to trap number two, which is it's so unfair they just don't take action.
Right.
But they're nonetheless in the situation that they're in. And if the whole punchline to life is neurochemistry and feeling joyful and, you know, being excited about who you are when you're by yourself, then it's like, well, you have to do the work, even if it isn't fair. And that to me,
especially if it isn't.
Why
because
especially?
There's two kinds of prisons that you can sentence yourself to or be sentenced to, right? One is all the physical shit you're talking about, the circumstances of your life, the circumstances of your body, the circumstances that are unfair. And then there is the mental prison, and that's the one you're in control of. So people can do all kinds of shit to you, and you can be born into situations that are not fair, they're not safe, they're cruel, it's unfair, you didn't deserve it. But the real power that you always have is how you react to it mentally. I'm not saying put lipstick on a pig and ignore the very real problems you're facing. I'm saying it begins with your mental attitude about your own ability to face it and to survive it and to move past it. That's what I'm saying. Because without that, like, let's go back to the woman in the domestic violence shelter who's had the shit beaten out of her by partners, who has immense emotional trauma stored in her nervous system, stored in the neurochemistry of her brain. She has an extraordinary amount of hurdles to get through in her life to heal, to be safe, to break patterns that are associated with the trauma that she's experienced as a child, the trauma that she experienced in romantic relationships, the physical abuse. She has issues related to poverty. Can a human being survive those things and change? Of course they can. It begins, though, with the belief that you can. And so when I come back to this moment every single morning, you can have nothing and you can still have your own back. You can have tremendous problems and very real obstacles that you're facing. And you can have a mindset that says, through my efforts, my attitude, I can have an impact on the situation that I'm in. That's the power that I have. I can ask for help because I believe I deserve it. I can seek therapy because I believe I should heal because I deserve that. I can seek information from shows like Impact Theory about how to break trauma patterns, about how to regulate my nervous system, because I believe I am worthy of that. When I raise my hand in the mirror, I'm basically saying, fuck off to these people that hurt me because I believe that I deserve better. That's where it begins. It begins with you. Self-confidence, self-love, self-esteem, self-reliance, self-awareness. It all has the same self. You have to give yourself those things. You want validation? Give it to yourself. You want to be cheered for? Give it to yourself. You want to feel supported in life? Start by giving those things to yourself, because the most important relationship that you have is the one you have with yourself, and you work on it the least. It's the foundation of every relationship you have. And so I believe that there are simple things you can do, from looking at hearts, which doesn't solve your problems. It proves to you that it's possible to change the way your brain works. That's why I want you to do it. It's not going to take away poverty. It's not going to make you lose 100 pounds. It's going to prove to you that, shit, you do have power over the way your mind works. And when you get crafty about training your brain, you can do really cool shit. And when your attitude is optimistic, based on research, we know that you will work harder and keep going because you believe that it makes a difference. It begins with these simple things.
Speaking of tricks that you can do to get control of your mind, in the book, you talk about what I'll call a pattern interrupt. Forget the exact phrase you use for it, but you talk a lot about, I'm not going to think about that.
I'm not thinking about that.
What does that mean? How do you do it? Why is it useful?
So it's what I started doing before the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because you can count backwards to do the same thing. But a lot of times it's the pattern of negative thoughts. I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. Or even just worrying. What if the Delta variant takes off? What if I don't go back to work? What if this happens? What if that? How is that helping you exactly? Like, there's productive worry, which is worry that motivates you to take action. And then there's destructive worry, which is worry that makes you literally circle the drain mentally. You always want to interrupt destructive worrying or any kind of destructive self-talk. So the second you catch yourself going, gosh, I look fat, or boy, I'm a loser, or there I go, I failed again, you're like, literally slap that shit away, like high five it away. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And you start with, I'm not thinking about that, because if you're so used to hearing I'm not good enough, there's no fucking way you're going to believe the mantra, I'm good enough. Because the thing about mantras are, and this is why most mantras are bullshit, is they don't work unless you believe them. And so there is power in creating what's called a meaningful mantra. But the first step to getting control of the negative self-talk is interrupt that shit. Don't listen to it. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And then what I want you to do is just do that for a day. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. If you have any kind of thought that makes you feel bad, that you don't like, I'm not thinking about that. The next day, start to notice, what are the patterns in terms of the thoughts that come up? when I was writing this book, one of my daughters talked about the fact that she's constantly feeling like she's not a good person. And so, for example, she missed a dentist appointment. And because she's constantly thinking I'm not a good person, missing the dentist appointment becomes evidence. See, there I am again. I missed the dentist appointment. I'm not a good person. No. Are you kidding? Like, if somebody doesn't have the story, if somebody has a different story, like I'm a pretty good person, I do my best, and you miss the dentist appointment, a lot of us are like, oh, thank God, I can't stand the dentist. I'll pay the $20 fee. I don't have to go. You don't attach I'm a shitty person to it. And so she started using, I'm not thinking about that. She's not ready to believe she's a good person yet, because she's so used to saying, I'm not a good person. So the first step is interrupt the thing, then take notice, and then you can start to create what I call a meaningful mantra, because now we want to break the pattern by saying, I'm not thinking about that, or use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when you're ready, you can create a meaningful mantra to replace it, because any pattern is going to repeat unless you replace it. And so meaningful mantras are things that you can be like, yeah, I can believe that. So it might be, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best. I screw up sometimes, but I'm not a bad person. Like those kind of things that are sort of not like, yeah, superhero, mantra, I'm fabulous. Like, most of us don't really feel that way about ourselves. So if you just are like, I'm doing the best I can, that's pretty empowering if you think about it. Or I can learn from this. Or this is temporary. I'll be okay. Those sorts of things are little ways to high-five your mind instead of, again, going low. You got a choice. Do you take yourself down or do you lift yourself up? Are you going outside of yourself or are you coming back in for what you need? I want you to come in and lift yourself up. That's what the high-five habit's about.
As I'm standing in the bathroom, I'm doing this disgusting habit we just talked about. I'm in my underwear. Don't even have a bra on, haven't had a cup of coffee yet, and I'm brushing my teeth, and I'm already thinking, like you said, about all the things I need to do. Yeah. I got to call the kids' therapist. I got to figure out this. How am I going to pay the bill? And all of a sudden I catch a glimpse of myself, and I go, oh my God, you look like hell. Gray hair coming in, dark circles under my eyes. I got this waddle on my neck, one boob's hanging lower than the other. And then, of course, as I'm beating the hell out of myself, I now start to think, how am I going to get done today? Like, I didn't answer the text. I haven't walked the dog. How am I going to get ready? And like, now I'm just pound.
Yeah.
Now, if either one of you had walked into the room, first of all, you would have been horrified. But secondly, I would have been able to spin on a dime. I would have been able to turn and be like, you got this. You guys have been so successful. You have reinvented yourself so many times. Do you know who you are? Do you know that your documentary is on Netflix in 90 countries? Do you know? Have you forgot? Like, I would have been able to lift you up and kick you right out of that thing. No problem.
But you were having trouble doing that for yourself because of the stories that you were manufacturing in your mind.
Yeah. Boom. 1,000%. And also, even if I had said some stupid pep talk, I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah.
This is why most mantras, by the way, don't work for people. Because you pick something you don't believe. The stories that you have been telling yourself are so plowed into your mind that your mind's like, yep, nope, you don't think you're awesome. I got 20 years of you telling me otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. That mantras don't work. You have to pick a pathetic mantra. We'll get into that in a little bit. But so I'm standing there. My attitude's going into the tank. I have no idea. I think it was the universe, literally. I think the universe was like, the world needs this now, and this crazy lady is the one to do it. Boom. And so I see myself in the mirror. And let's go back to, is it Frederico? Yeah. I see myself in the mirror. I put my toothbrush down. And for whatever reason, I find myself raising my hand, as pathetic as it sounds, to my own reflection. Because the woman in the mirror looked like she needed it.
Yes.
And here's the thing. First of all, it's not like lightning shot through the ceiling and struck me, okay? It's not like the heavens opened and the angels sang in that moment. But something shifted, and we're going to talk about the science of what you're going to feel shift inside you. Because the coolest thing about the high five habit is it's actually taking programming in your nervous system and your brain and physiologically that's already programmed in you.
Yes.
And it's aiming it back at you. It's the coolest freaking thing in the world.
I want to talk to you about that. I also want to talk about where self-doubt comes from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get to a question here from Mark in Perth, Australia.
I've read all your books and listened to almost all your podcasts. I can't find much information on your broken marriages. Unfortunately, me and my wife separated early this year as we were going in different directions and our values were also differing. How did you guys both bounce back from your broken marriages and also manage the guilt?
Talk about a template for self-doubt, inner conflict, looking in the rear view and pointing out every single thing that went wrong. Mark, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, and I understand the pain because Ryan and I have certainly both been through this. And the pain that is there also starts to cloud the past in a way. It starts making up stories that didn't necessarily exist or amplifying these tiny little stories. Mel, can we talk about this?
Hell yes. This is it right here. What Mark is going through is it. Because when you stand in the bathroom before yourself, and I said there are two people in the bathroom. There's you, Mark, the guy going through the divorce with all of the regret and the shame and the beating up and everything that he's experiencing in real time, which is normal. And there's a human being in the mirror who's also experiencing it.
Yes.
Who needs your partnership. And so when Mark stands in front of the mirror, Mark, after you listen to this, I actually want you to go right to your bathroom right now. I want you to stand in front of your mirror and I want you to take a minute and just look at yourself. Look past your face, look past your body. I want you to see if you can see the energy, the spirit, the soul, the humanity in the person in the mirror. And what you're going to experience is I tell you, now I want you feeling everything that you feel. Regret, shame, sadness, fear, uncertainty, all of it.
Not suppressing it.
Oh, God, no. And I don't want you to say a thing because mantras don't work.
Amen to that.
I want you to just raise your hand in silence and high five yourself. Now, what's going to happen is one of two things. One of two things happens. We've now been researching this for a year. We have 100,000 people at this moment from 90 countries doing a 5-day challenge. It is incredible. And there are only two things that people experience when you do the high five habit for the first time. First of all, you're going to stand there and everybody has this feeling like, am I really doing a high five in the mirror? Like, this is kind of stupid. Like, come on. Well, the reason why we all have that feeling is because we are breaking the opposite habit. So your brain currently rejects you. A high five, let's talk about a high five and what it represents. When either one of you have high fived somebody else or you've received one, what does the high five communicate?
Joy.
Yep.
Celebration.
What else?
Encouragement, motivation, inspiration.
Acceptance.
Yeah. Like you've never high fived somebody and went, I hate you. You suck. I hope you lose. Even when a teammate blows a shot, if you high five them, you're like, shake it off.
Man.
I still believe in you.
Yes.
What are you getting?
Yeah. Oh, no, it just makes me think of a boss we used to have who would always go to people like to high five them and then he'd pull it away.
What a dick.
I know, he was such a dick. But it's amazing though, like just it's the exact opposite because he was holding back that high five.
Correct.
Like he's getting someone excited for it and he's like, psych, I'm not going to high five you, loser. Yeah.
That's exactly what that says.
Yeah.
But so when you actually have done a high five or received one, you have gotten a boost of dopamine. Your nervous system gets the energy of celebration jolted through it. Physiologically, you change. It's why it feels so good. And so your brain doesn't know the difference between high-fiving somebody else and actually high-fiving yourself because it's been an action that's been repeated for so long. This is a field of study called neurobics. So all of the goodness that comes from high-fiving somebody else, the positive programming, I believe in you, I see you, I love you, shake it off, I still got you, I'm encouraging you, we're doing this, we can still win, it's okay, this is hard, but okay. All of that positive programming is in your basal ganglia and is attached to the physical motion of a high five.
I love it.
The second Mark stands in front of the mirror to practice the high five habit, and he feels weird, that's okay. That means you're about to practice new behavior and you go to raise your hand. You can, in the moment you start, be thinking, I hate my life. I fucked things up.
I wish I could change things. But as you start to extend your arm, your brain recognizes the gesture and shuts that stuff down. Because neurologically, you cannot think something negative. The programming's already in there. This is the coolest thing in the world. You don't have to say a thing. And so the high five isn't like, yeah, I'm getting divorced. That's not what it is. It's, holy cow, this is hard. And I still love you. And I'm still going to be here with you.
I see you.
I see you.
Yeah.
And we're going to get through this together.
Yes.
It's going to be okay. That's what the high five says in that moment. And most people resist. So you're either going to have a super positive reaction. So the positive reaction comes in two forms. You either crack a big smile or you laugh. That's the dopamine flooding your brain. Or you start sobbing. And the sobbing is a sign, it's a release. It's this partnership and connection to yourself at a crazy deep level that you've been yearning for decades.
Yes.
And it feels so good. But the more common thing, and this is what Mark is probably going to feel, is resistance. And the resistance is all of the baggage that we want to delete from your life. So when you stand before yourself in the mirror, you drag, we minimalists hate this, you drag a freight train semi-truck load full of crap from your past. If you, let's talk about the categories that this falls into, because there are 3. I've researched the heck out of this. Like, bring it on. I can literally go for hours about the power of this. I am so excited, not because it's worked for me, but because I am standing shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of thousands of people around the world and the world's leading researchers saying, this not only works, it is groundbreaking. And because it's the how for forgiveness. It's the how for self-love. It is the how for self-empowerment. It's incredible. And so as Mark stands there and as you stand there, and if you start to feel this resistance, the first category of resistance is things that have been done to you. So if you've experienced trauma, addiction, abuse, abandonment, neglect, heartache, terrible accidents, all of stuff that you're not responsible for, a lot of people drag that cargo load full and park it between themselves and the person in the mirror. And they see all of that and say, the person I see does not deserve a high five because they're unworthy or damaged or unlovable because of that. What are you getting? I see you smiling ear to ear.
Yeah. No, it's funny you brought up the narcissism earlier, and I think one of the reasons the reasons I actually look in the mirror is, hey, I'm going to check my hair. How's my hair today, right? And so there isn't a seeing of the other person. In fact, I've always identified with the musician Moby. He removed all the mirrors from his house, sort of thing, and what I appreciated about that is he was trying to remove the vanity from his life. And maybe there was a point where that was necessary for him, but also at the same time, what you might be removing is that seeing of yourself.
So the thing about negative self-talk is that it is typically something you've engaged in since you were yay high. And in addition to it being wired into your brain, it is also something that can get triggered by your nervous system in stressful situations. And so the first step, and we can talk more about the filter in your brain and how the filter in your brain is causing you to stay stuck in a lot of this negative self-talk and how to use your mind to help you. But the first step is you got to do the awful part of getting self-aware of what the voice is saying. And the way that you do that, there's a couple techniques that you can use to create what researchers or psychologists call objectivity. You want to separate yourself from the voice. So you can do what Lewis is doing. He's writing down right now in a journal. You can keep just a little notebook with you, and you can kind of catalog when your attitude tanks. And what are you actually saying to yourself? Okay.
So should we write down all the things we're saying?
You could.
Negative about ourselves?
You can. I personally do it this way. I start to notice when I feel down, or I start to notice when my energy drops. And then I tune into what I'm thinking about. And if it's negative, I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I literally notice, oh, you're sitting there thinking you're a bad person again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that somebody's mad at you again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that you screw everything up again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that that nothing ever works out for you. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that you've blown it Interesting. And then I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I go, I'm not thinking about that. That's the most basic technique to use, because what I want you to do, since this is like operating on autopilot, it's encoded right here. When you're not really thinking, this is what's running, kind of like the soundtrack of your life. When you just start to notice that you have a thought that's not helping you, you can't control that it popped up, but guess what you can do? You can smack it down.
Yeah.
And so I use the 5-second rule, which we've talked about a lot on your show. Count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The counting backwards awakens your prefrontal cortex. It gives you a moment of control. And then the way to build distance, Lewis, is say, I'm not thinking about that. And here's why. You're so used to thinking this way, I can't just say, stop thinking you're fat and start thinking that you love your body.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
So you've got to go, oh, there I am. I'm trashing the way that I look. I'm telling myself that I'm overweight. I look like shit. I'm hideous. Nobody's going to love me. Be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about that. It's an act of defiance. See, I want you to go from these negative thought patterns to a more positive, empowering, high-five attitude. Because if you continue to live in, I'm fat, I'm unworthy, no one's going to love me, I've screwed up my life, that will be your life.
Right.
And the trick on this is, I'm not saying change your thoughts and unicorns appear. I'm saying change your thoughts so you stop the 24/7 beatdown.
Yeah.
And learn how to lift yourself up so that you can face the things that are going on in your life, and so that you can take the actions that you need to take to change your life. Because the reason why you're not changing is not because you're not capable. It's not because of the trauma or your past or anything else. It's because of the beatdown. That's why you're not changing.
Yeah, it's draining.
It's draining. It's demoralizing. It is, and by the way, if you constantly are like, I'm unlovable, I'm worthy, I'm this, I'm that, why on earth would you feel motivated, or do you think you deserve to change? If that's the thing in your mind. It doesn't work. And so pay attention. When you feel your energy go negative, be like, oh, okay, what am I, oh, whoa, that's disgusting. 5, 4, 3, I'm not thinking about that. You don't have to insert anything else. Let's just practice shutting it the hell up.
Right.
The second thing you can do is, once you kind of get good at interrupting it, I want you to name, like, let's turn it into a character. So I did this with our son Oakley when he was struggling pretty profoundly with anxiety when he was in the 5th grade. He named his anxiety Oliver. And then we asked him to describe Oliver. And Oliver was like this pimply-faced kid that, what is that, the Diary of the Wimpy Kid kind of bully-looking kid? And whenever the negative worries and stuff would come up, he would you could literally hear him go, Oliver, shut up. And it is the ability, what's happening when you name it and picture the person, is that you're able to detach yourself from that voice in your mind that's talking. Because that voice is typically a caregiver that either talked to you that way or talked to themselves that way, or some bully or some trauma experience or some nasty coach that beat this into your head. It's from somebody else. And so we want you to separate yourself so you can be like, oh, that's what Oliver sounds like. That's not actually how I want to talk to myself.
Right.
And so identifying it, interrupting it, and then you can get into the really incredible magic of rewiring your brain to work for you.
Yeah, I think Ethan Kross, who's a psychologist out of the University of Michigan, has a book called Chatter, which is about all the different psychological strategies for eliminating the negative self-talk and improving the quality of your mind. And he says, start coaching yourself just like you would have a great coach coaching you. Have someone like a character in your mind coaching you, celebrating you with your self-talk to help you kind of shift out of that by interrupt it, then coach yourself.
What would Lewis say to me? What would Mel say to me?
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the tricky part of this. So the tricky part of this is that I personally think most mantras are also complete garbage. And the reason why I say that is because you don't freaking believe them.
Right.
So if you think you're worthless, you're never going to be able to stand in front of a mirror and change your life by going, I'm worthy. Because your brain's like,
Who?
No, you're not.
Wait, no, you're not. We've been talking about this for your life. You're not worthy. You want me to show you something? So you have to interrupt it, and if you're going to try to replace it, what you need to do are two things. Number one, you have got to come up with. I should have called it pathetic mantra because it would have been easier to remember. In the book, I called it a meaningful mantra. We should just call it a pathetic mantra. You need to come up with something that's like, okay. You know, like if you're really like bad and you think you're a horrible person, like don't make your mantra, I'm amazing. Make your mantra like, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
Something simple.
Yeah, you can believe that, right? You can believe, yeah, I'm trying. You know, I'm not meaning to screw up. I'm doing the best I can. Like that I believe.
Yeah.
And that's better than, boy,
I'm the best in the world right now.
yeah, no, you're never going to believe that.
Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever. Like, for example, if you struggle with health and weight and stuff, it's probably going to be hard for you to stand in front of a mirror and be like, I love my body, because you've been rejecting it. So instead, look at yourself in the mirror and use a meaningful mantra. I deserve to feel healthy.
Right.
And I'm going to treat myself in a way that proves it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's different. It's different because it's believable. The only other thing that will change the way that you think is behavioral activation therapy. So there's a lot of the tools in this book that are grounded as a baseline in the body of research around behavioral activation therapy, which I know you talk about all the time on the show, which is basically act like the person you want to become.
Right.
If you want to be more like Lewis, act like Lewis. Follow his morning routine. Take his advice. Interrupt the garbage, Oliver, in your head. 5, 4, 3. I'm not talking to you, Oliver. What would Lewis say to me? How would Lewis talk to Lewis? And start to act like the person you want to become, and something interesting happens. And this is why the high five works, by the way, because it is an action. You are acting like somebody who believes in and loves themselves.
Yeah.
That's why it works.
Move into motion. Don't just think only, but move and act.
So when you see yourself, you know, we always talk about positive morning routines. Let's talk about negative ones, okay? Because your negative patterns are the reason why you have horrible self-talk.
Right.
Like when I was in law school, I hated my life. My anxiety was out of control. I was out of control. I hated law school. And so my behavior actually reflected my state of mind. I would wake up hungover. I would immediately think, oh my God, I'm late. I would then reach for a cigarette and light it. Then I would run around the apartment getting dressed and trying to find everything because nothing was organized. I would then quickly drive to Dunkin' Donuts, even though I had no time, to stop for a coffee. I'd get a big old coffee with 4 sugars and 2 creams, smoking another cigarette on the way, speeding my whole way there. Then I would sit in class, be panic-stricken about being called on. Same thing again. Then I would sit at lunch, pick at a salad, gossip with friends, avoid the homework. Then I would go to the library, procrastinate forever. Then I would drive home, split a bottle of wine with my roommate, fall asleep, wake up, repeat. When you see somebody's actions, you can typically predict just how bad they're trapped in their mind.
Absolutely.
But I think we all are. I mean, I think even people that have healthy habits don't have a healthy relationship with themselves. That your self-talk is ground zero. Because how you talk to yourself, what you think about yourself when you look in the mirror, that sort of default setting in your mind, geez Louise, I mean, it makes me really sad, honestly.
I love that you say that positive thinking isn't the answer and that motivation is garbage.
Yes.
So tell us why we can't just positively think our way into a better life, and why waiting for motivation is just a garbage idea.
It's a great question. So let's start with positive thinking alone. So one reason why positive thinking isn't the answer is because there are very real problems that people face. You know, there's you write about this all the time. There's systematic discrimination, there's bias, there's poverty, there's abuse, there's trauma. There's very real issues that people face. And thinking positively doesn't remove those things. It doesn't change those things. But cultivating a positive mindset does change you. And that's where there's an interesting twist.
If you have a very negative and pessimistic mindset, you will never, ever take the actions that could have a positive impact on the very real things that you're facing.
Yes.
When you have an optimistic mindset and an optimistic, what I call a high five attitude, what that means is you believe that through your attitude and your actions, you can have a positive impact on a situation that you're facing.
I
And
love
so when
that.
you cultivate that kind of attitude, it makes it easier when you feel encouraged, when you're grounded in faith and belief, when you start to push yourself and cheer yourself forward, that even though this is hard, every step I take forward makes a difference. It encourages the action because you will never, ever, ever change your life or change your health or change your community or change this world or change anything in your life by thinking only.
About it.
You have to take action.
Mhm.
And so that's also why I say motivation is garbage, because we've all bought into this lie, this belief that at some point you're going to feel motivated. At some point you'll feel ready. At some point you'll feel energized. At some point you feel courageous. And it's not happening. You're not designed to do things that feel hard. You're designed to repeat the patterns you already know. And all change requires you to push outside your comfort zone. All change requires you to do something new. And your brain will resist anything that feels weird or new. And so sitting around waiting to feel like it is a recipe for doing nothing. And the 5-second rule is a way to create instant motivation to push yourself, because you're not going to feel like it, but you can do it anyway.
I love that so much. I resonate with that so much, that the world is changed by people who actually do stuff.
Yes.
And sitting around waiting for things to happen because you had some deep thoughts has changed almost nothing in the world.
Correct. Correct.
If you want the world to be better, you actually have to get up off the couch. And your brain doesn't want to do that. It's
No.
For a variety of reasons, that it wants to conserve the energy. Something out there is scary. Let's stay here where it's safe. We already know what's in our house. What is outside the house? We don't know. There's a big variety of reasons why your brain doesn't want to change. And so I could not agree with you more wholeheartedly that if you want something to change, you cannot wait to feel ready.
Yeah. And so let me add something to it. So let's go a little bit deeper. Psychologists basically say that you either are a person that has a bias toward thinking, which typically means overthinking and reflecting on obstacles and ruminating about challenges and worries, or you are a person that has a bias towards action. And the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, moves you from that bias towards thinking to a bias toward action. And the other thing that I want to say about motivation is the high five habit plays a role in this too. And I'll explain why using a common sense example. Most of us have a default of focusing on what we're doing wrong, beating ourselves up for not being where we're supposed to be, criticizing the stuff that we're doing. And I want to ask, is that actually helping you? Is it encouraging and motivating you to take the actions that you need to change your life? Of course it isn't. It makes you feel demoralized and defeated and less than. And if you think about a marathon, you know, we've all had the experience of seeing a road race go by or a marathon. And if you're standing at mile 11 as a spectator, you don't cross your arms and go,
Look at all these runners.
I'm not clapping for you. Do you see how slow you were in the last
Right.
clip? You forget it. Maybe when you cross the finish line. I don't know. We'll see. Are you kidding? We're like, yay. And if you've ever been in a road race or a walkathon or something, it's the fans and feeling cheered for and encouraged
that actually keeps you going. And so if you want to manufacture motivation, the high five habit and sending yourself into the game of life to take another step forward in what is a marathon, sending yourself into it, feeling encouraged and supported, even if yesterday you didn't get through your to-do list. You didn't do the thing you said you were going to do. You ate the donut. You screamed at the kids, whatever. If you can still drag yourself out of bed and despite everything that you've survived, raise your hand, see yourself, celebrate yourself, love yourself, and give yourself the support you need, you will show up very differently today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was reading that section too, and they were talking about like the children,
Yes,
the study that they did with the kids, and basically that the kids all the kids that were high fiving performed at a higher level. That made sense to me because I felt like as a child, like I feel like action is so important, and for some reason, as we get older, like we kind of lose that part of us, like validating each other in action. We just say a lot of things, and we're told, even us, like we're told, we tell our listeners, like talk nice to yourself, like say things like
you need to.
Like in therapy, one of the things that like my therapist helped me with, because I had body issues, especially after I had my daughter, was like talking nice to my body, and like it took a while though because I didn't believe it for a while. It took me a while to believe it. Eventually, it did work though. But it did take longer. And I was reading about like, the issues that you have with certain mantras or affirmations is that like, you don't actually believe them half the time.
Well, you experienced that yourself.
Yeah.
So most people cannot stand in front of a mirror and look at themselves if for the last couple years or decades, they have hid in the back of every photo or they have gone, ugh, when they see themselves. They can't stand in front of a mirror and go, I love my stretch marks. Because neurologically, their brain has been programmed repeatedly to believe the opposite. And so repeating a mantra that you don't actually believe makes you feel worse about yourself. And what I love about the high five is, let's talk a little bit about the two experiences that people have when they do this for the first time, because we've studied this too. And what I love about the high five is that the physical action alone does the programming. So you're not only tapping into the programming that's in there associated with a lifetime of receiving and giving high fives to other people, but you are also tapping into something called behavioral activation therapy, which is shorthand for act like the person you want to become. So if you normally have a habit of self-rejection in the mirror, picking yourself apart, which is self-rejection, or not even looking at yourself, which is self-rejection, and your brain sees you high-fiving your reflection, your brain goes, oh, we actually don't criticize that person. This is a person we cheer for. And as you keep repeating it, that picture of you, along with the dopamine and the jolt of energy, starts to sear in your mind and stay with you. And so it's an action that starts to prove to you that you actually do deserve support. You do deserve encouragement, because every morning you're giving yourself that physical gesture that means it.
So for the woman who is trying to learn to love their stretch marks, like is she like when she does that high five, does she say, what does she say?
Don't say anything.
Nothing.
No. You know, the 5-second rule, which I created, I don't know, over a decade ago, that's gone on to help me change my whole life. It's a little starting ritual and a brain hack that you can use to help yourself take the actions and change the thoughts that change your life. It helped me be more productive. It helped me get stuff done. The high five habit has changed who I am. It has deleted a lifetime of criticism and negativity from my mind, and it has reprogrammed the soundtrack to be somebody that's supportive and a cheerleader. It's extraordinary.
That's so beautiful to hear, because I think so often we like to oscillate from one extreme to another. So people start by criticizing themselves. And then sometimes we've heard in the toxic positivity movement of, well, just tell yourself you're amazing and tell yourself you're incredible. And to me, that doesn't always work either, because we struggle to say it with feeling and meaning and belief. But what I love about what you're sharing with the high five habit is that it's actually looking at, no, you're trying. Let me be supportive. Let me be encouraging. Let me use my words to notice that which I want to grow and work on. but I'm not creating an artificial illusion of either criticism or perfection, both of which are unreal.
Well, and here's the extraordinary thing. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to say a word. Like, one of the reasons why mantras don't work for so many people is you choose something you don't believe. And so as you stand before a mirror or you say it to yourself after a lifetime of beating yourself up, your brain's like, yep, no, we don't believe that. Because you've told me the other opposite story for so long, I'm not going to buy it now. This is that, you know, bringing up my husband and my daughter, there's nothing worse than seeing somebody that you love who is tearing themselves apart. And knowing that you actually can't do anything. And in some ways, when you try to lift somebody up who's really down, it pushes them away because you're invalidating their reality. So they start to feel like you don't understand what it's like to be them, because the truth is you don't. And so one of the things that I am the most excited about is that, just like the 5-second rule was this little tool that anybody could use in a moment when they were alone and they needed to motivate themselves. Nobody else is there. No one's coming. It's just you and your fear and your procrastination. You've got this simple little thing to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself. I believe that the high five habit is an even bigger and more profound tool, because in that moment, every single day, where the war is with self-hatred and with self-rejection, you now have a tool to fight back.
That is a drop the effing mic. Like, I got nothing. My brain just went like, nope, there's nothing else to say to that. That is, oh my gosh.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.